Mtume said that Miles Davis told him, and Yusef said many similar things.
Mm-hmm.
When you play a note, it's 20% the note you play, and 80% the attitude you put into the note.
Mm-hmm.
And Yusef also, Yusef could play one note.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him do it many times and bring down the house.
Yes.
I mean, well, let me put it another way. Bring magic into the room.
Mm.
So I just wanted to know, I feel like as my mentor that what he taught me was about that kind of how you project your humanity through your instrument.
Yes.
And I was just wondering what you thought about that. Is that more?
Yeah. Sound. That's the first thing I noticed about Yusef was sound and notes. And I mean, he could play. There's one song that he does that has stuck with me. It's one of the early songs on one of his earlier records. I think I was still in high school. I don't know the name of it. It was a blues, but it was a blues, but it was beyond a blues. It had the African. It had everything in this one song, and I still played it to this day. I'm gonna find the name of it, but yes, it's and Miles had that too. All of the great John Coltrane, they all had that because the note. I mean. You play the note, and you play each note. And I tell my students, each note has a birth, a life, and a death.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how fast you play that note. You cannot gloss over it. It has to have a birth, a life, and a death. And he taught me that. He taught me that.
Adam Kolker, did you have something to add?
Well, something to second. I mean, I so agree with what Gary and Adam are saying about Yusef's sound. I mean, for me, that is, I mean, I can't say the one thing because everything he played was so beautiful. His ideas, the sound was, on saxophone was just so colorful and full of all the harmonics that I look for as a saxophonist. And and as Adam and Gary both said, one note from Yusef was, that's all I needed to hear from everybody who heard him. One note was enough from him. And for me, that there was like, for me that also, it's hard to imagine what people are thinking or what's going behind that sometimes. But for me, there was an honesty and a directness from Yusef that always, that when you hear someone like him, that's the thing that I think of. And the other thing I also wanted to talk about his sound, and this is from me, coming from me who has studied not as many instruments as Yusef certainly, but have also put in my time on flute and clarinet and tried the double. I think it's hard to understand how incredibly great an instrumentalist he was. I mean, on every one of those instruments that he played, I mean, I'm talking about just the Western instruments for now, bassoon, oboe, flute, tenor saxophone, his sound was so fantastic. I mean, just really unbelievable. And the other thing, too, that I find amazing and I find difficult in my own practice is that on each of the different instruments, he had his own but different sound. It didn't sound like he was playing tenor on flute or that he was playing tenor on oboe. When he played oboe, it was Yusef Lateef dealing with the oboe and getting a thing on oboe that's different from his equally great thing on flute, which was Yusef Lateef playing flute and sounding unbelievable on flute. And it was the same with tenor and the same with bassoon and all the instruments. He developed, he had a different yet equally great voice on all of his instruments, and the sound and the technique, and it was just, unmatched as far as I'm aware of in music.
Absolutely. One of the incredible things about listening to this music, our homegrown American art form, as I like to call it, is the uniqueness of the individuals who play it in terms of their sounds and recognizing it in a note or two. Oran, did you have something to add to this?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Adam Rudolph was mentioning Miles, and I think both Miles and Yusef had this quality where they wouldn't have to play so many notes, and they would the notes that they played carried so much weight. And in the moments between when they played those notes, I guess I keep on going back to this thing about listening. You could feel that Yusef was listening.
Mm.
And I feel like for all the other musicians playing with him, the fact that he was there listening, even if he wasn't playing a note, the strength of the spirit of him being there listening,
the presence.
It was so tangible. You could really feel that he's listening. And when you're playing with him, I mean, I'm sure Adam Rudolph, you could comment much more on this. I haven't played with him so much, but just seeing his effect on the other musicians and that the strength of that listening, it's like he was both leading, because he was very much leading with every note that he did. It was like, but also leading, but also very aware, very much listening and directing everything, but by not playing so much. I guess that's something that really sticks with me. I don't know, Adam, if that's something. I'm sure you can talk a little bit about from what your experience playing with him.
Before we jump to Adam, Mark, did you have a quick quote from Yusef?
Yeah, just talking about the sound. I know that he always told me that your sound should be like a mother talking to her child, and that's the sort of love you're supposed to go for. And I actually think the way he spoke was very similar to that. Like if he was speaking to you, it was love in that voice, like all the time.